Welcome everyone back to this powerful and intriguing Empower Hour episode number 12. And today I feel truly honored to welcome a very, very special guest. She is a gifted psychic medium with an extraordinary story. Her story is rooted in love, loss, and divine transformation. For many, many years, she wasn't even aware that the young man that she lost as a teenager was in fact her twin flame. It was only much later, through profound spiritual awakening, that the truth of their eternal bond revealed itself. What makes her journey even more powerful is that her twin flame now works with her from the spirit realm, guiding her with her soul mission that's changing so many lives. She has used her unique psychic mediumship abilities to help locate missing people. She teaches mediumship to others, and she is also writing a book about rarely spoken experience of twin flame death. Her journey is a deep inspiration for anyone in the process of unlocking their spiritual gifts and discovering their soul purpose. Together in this video, we explore how twin flame death can be a catalyst for deep spiritual gifts to emerge and how love beyond the veil continues to guide us into our soul mission. So let's welcome Trisha.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I feel very grateful to get such people like you on this episode because this is what I feel called for. Whatever we are doing as awakened people or twin flames or whatever labels apart, ultimately we are opening our hearts and spreading whatever we are having in our.
Well, I mean, absolutely. Like I said, there was only three ladies, and you are one of the three. When I was desperate for answers and understanding, if it wasn't for the three of you sharing your own stories and doing all this twin flame stuff, how would I even known? How would I even? It would have probably taken me so much longer to have a greater understanding. I watched your videos and they were tremendously helpful. I think there was one in particular you did with a lady where you shared more of your twin flame journey with your twin that passed, and that was beautiful. So your work is so appreciated and valued and needed in this world, in this time and space. So
Yeah.
please keep doing it.
And so is yours, very unique, and it requires a different type of a patience, different type of resilience.
Yeah.
So when I received your email, I was very excited to see that there is somebody like me because I have also gone through a very similar experience like yours. The only difference was that when my twin flame was around, I was aware about the connection. He was also pretty much aware of the connection. And then he
Mhm.
passed into the spirit. But in your case, there was a different scenario. So, what was your journey like? And even before that, if you want to talk about your background, what is your ethnic background? Has that played any sort of a role in your awakening? When did you awaken? You could talk about that.
I come from a multi ethnic background. My father is Indian descent. I'm first generation American born in the United States. My mother is Sicilian descent, and she was first generation born in the United States. So I have this heavy cultural differences, religious differences. My father's side of the family, Muslim, very strict. My mother's side of the family that raised me, Catholic. And I had a lot of problems growing up. My Sicilian grandmother raised me, and she passed when I was about 8 years old. So from then on, I had a lot of problems. My parents split up. There was a lot of abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, even spiritual abuse, I would say, just in the environment that I was in. And so there came a time as a teenager where we moved to a town called Bakersfield in California. And I was maybe 14 years old, and I was like a rebellious teen, but I also had abuse at home. Now, my Muslim grandmother had moved in with us, my father's mother, and she was very strict. Oh my God, she's old country strict. I know you can maybe understand some of these things.
Absolutely.
And so for me, growing up in an American household, it was like a big culture shock. It was really hard. My father was drinking a lot. He was physically abusive to me. And my sister was there. She's a year older than me. And she was always favored. And I was always like the black sheep. I think I reminded my father and my grandmother of my mother too much. And they did not like that. And so I ran away from home as a teenager. I had nowhere to go. And I just didn't want to, I felt like I didn't belong there. They did not feel like my family. And so I don't know what I was searching for. I just knew that I didn't belong there. And so I ran away from home and I was in really bad environments as a teenager, places that a teenager should not be, a child should not be in environments around people that were like doing drugs and adults. The way that I met my twin was I met his sister first and she took me in. She said, "You could come and stay at my home." And she was a mother, she had small children and she had a partner and her brother was happening to live with her at that moment in time. I don't think he had been living there very long. And so I moved in with her and she was great. And I helped take care of her kids. She had, at that point, I think she had 4 kids, 4 little small children. So I was helping take care of the children and he was there. And now looking back at it, it's just so crazy. It was like automatic connection, like beyond words. I saw him and he saw me, and that's it. We were just together. We just became boyfriend and girlfriend. And this happened the summer that I was 16 years old and he was 18 years old. And it happened very fast. I wouldn't even say the whole summer. I think we might have met in maybe May or June, and he passed at the end of July. I felt very safe with him from the beginning, and he was very protective of me. And the thing was, he slept a lot. And I didn't know why he slept a lot, but he was either taking care of me or sleeping. And so when he was sleeping, I was sleeping with him. And the reason why he was sleeping was because the cancer that he had, that none of us knew, he didn't know, his family didn't know, I didn't know, not even a clue, was moving in his body and moving to his brain. And so he had a really angry outburst at his sister's home. It was really out of character for him because he was very gentle, more kind of quiet person. And so what happened was the police came, they arrested him, they took him to jail, and he started urinating blood. And they took him to the hospital, and immediately they found that the cancer had spread to his brain. I went to see him with his mother. So he was in the hospital, and the only thing he said to me, and the last words I ever remember him saying to me was, "What, no kiss?" And it was really strange to me that in the midst of all of that, that's what he was saying to me. I don't remember him saying a whole lot to anybody in his family, but that he looked at me and that's what he said to me, because our thing was we were so magnetic that we were just always kissing. And after that, he went into a coma and they pulled the plug from life support very quickly. Everything happened so quickly before I could even understand what was happening.
You said that it was just 2 months that you were
Yeah.
together, and then the third month he passed.
Yeah, it may have not even been 2 months. I can't even remember, but it happened that summer. It could have been 6 weeks. It could have been 7 weeks. It just was so fast. And after that, I didn't want to live. I was suicidal and I tried to almost take my own life. And in my thinking at the time, I just related it to, oh, well, my grandmother died. Now here's this boyfriend that I love that's died. And I thought I can never have anybody that loves me because they're going to die. And it was just like this negative self belief that I had. It was such a special relationship. I knew we had this magnetic attraction to each other, but I didn't see it as, oh, this is my soulmate. I didn't know what twin flames were. I didn't know any of this stuff. And I just thought that I took it harder because the environment I was living in was so hard. I was a homeless teen. I was living with this family. So I associated my grief with everything I was going through and not a twin flame journey at all. And so after he died, very shortly after I left his sister's home, I just couldn't be there. His family was grieving so much. So I ended up leaving his sister's home and I went back home to my father. And when I went back home, I found that he had remarried. He had done like an arranged marriage. And shortly later, we left California and we moved to Texas. So it was a whole upheaval of my life that happened after he died. And so looking back at it, I think that's something with the twin flame journey. When one dies, there's
Absolutely.
such a big transition, right, in our lives. And so now I could recognize that more. So that's how it all started. And then after that, because I didn't know he was my twin, I do believe the twin flame journey is really about how God has created us with love to exist as love in this world and wherever we go. But shortly before I met my twin, I was searching for God. I was looking for help, anything, any lifeline. And so a friend of mine, her mother forced us to go to a church performance. It was a Christian church performance in a park. And I really resonated with it because it was a lot of teenagers that were experiencing similar things like I was experiencing. And at that moment in time, I said, okay, whatever Muslim religion taught me, whatever Catholic religion taught me, I'm going to let it go because I never really resonated with it. And I'm going to hold on to what I'm learning here in Christianity because it felt more real to me and I could understand it more. So I became a Christian at that time. And that started my foundation with God. And I always say it was only out of necessity that I pursued God and I clung to God, and my faith became stronger than anything else that I could ever have in this life. And so I took that with me when after John passed and we moved to Texas. That's the one constant that I always had was God. And so there was like lots of things that happened in life once I moved to Texas. I was 17 at that time. I got pregnant at that time, very shortly after we moved to Texas. And I had my daughter, Angel. A little thing that's really funny here is when I moved to Texas, the first boyfriend I had, his name was John.
Okay.
And I didn't even connect the dots until very recently when I talked to John's little sister, and she told me the first man that she had a child with, his name was John as well. And also her nephew, his child name he gave him was John. There's a lot of synchronicities
Yeah.
with the name John. So it's just so funny to look back and see that he was there not even a year or so after his passing. He was bringing a man to me that would be the father of my daughter with the same name. And it was a lot of hardships in my life. And again, the only constant was God. I had my daughter, and then a few years later, I had my son. And my spiritual journey was very Christian based. I was very, very enmeshed in Christianity to the point where I was in ministry. I was volunteering in the church. I was like doing all these things. I raised my son in the church. And so I was really following those kind of ideologies and beliefs. And when I was maybe in my mid 30s, I would say, stuff started becoming different for me. I would go to church on Sunday and I would hear the pastor talk, and I was like, this is like all they're asking me for is money every time I come to church. And they're saying the same message and they're showing these sad stories on the screen to get sympathy from me. I felt like I was being manipulated, and I never saw it that way. It was some kind of awakening or awareness. And I was like, okay, let me stop going to church on Sunday because it doesn't feel good. But the relationship with God was still there. And what was also happening in the background was the work I was doing, I was not happy with. It did not feel good to me. So I was looking for something different. I was always like an entrepreneur, creative type, trying to create my own business. And I had a lot of time doing web development and graphic design and stuff like that. But it just, none of it was feeling right anymore. Something was shifting in me. So I got more curious about spirituality and I started Googling spiritual stuff and spiritual business stuff. Maybe I'll start a spiritual business, but what are my gifts? And at that time, there was an ad on Craigslist. I don't know if you're familiar with Craigslist, but it's classifieds. It was a big classifieds website in the United States. And so there was an ad from a mediumship school. And the ad was saying, if you want a free medium reading, sign up. And so I signed up, and my thinking was I just wanted to hear from my grandmother because she passed so abruptly and she was like my mother. And so I sign up and I go and I do the reading, and it was a student that was learning, and the teacher was in the background guiding the student and listening in. And the person that was giving me the reading, she gave me very vague things. I was not hearing what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear from my grandmother, and it wasn't really connecting enough. And then she kept mentioning that there was a man with a letter J in his name. His first letter of his name was J. And the only thing I could think of, I had my grandmother in spirit, I had my great aunt in spirit, and I had my great uncle in spirit. And my great uncle's name is Joe. And so I was thinking, just assuming, not thinking anything else, just that Uncle Joe was coming through with grandma because they spent so much time in life together. And I said, "Is it my great Uncle Joe?" And she kept saying no. And she kept persisting with the J name. And I could not connect with it because I wasn't thinking about anybody I knew that died in my life other than my grandmother, my uncle, and my aunt. And so I hung up the phone. And I swear, maybe a minute after I hung up the phone, I was like, it's John. I just like something just shifted in me. It was like a light bulb. And then shortly after that, strange things were happening in my home. I was a single mom at the time, hardest thing in my life. But I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would feel like somebody was standing over me. And I knew it was a man. And I knew it was a man either close to my age or younger. I could just feel his age. He didn't feel older. I couldn't tell what he looked like. I always want to say the word gentle when it comes to John, but it was like a gentle energy. It wasn't a threatening energy or anything like that. But because I was so enmeshed in Christianity and everything that Christianity had taught me about demonic stuff and ghosts, and it was never a healthy relationship with the dead. Christianity never gave me that. So I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would feel his presence standing over me and I would scream, "Get out of my home. You don't belong here." That kind of thing. It breaks my heart going back, thinking about it, talking about it, to treat
And
him that way because I didn't know.
this was how many years after his passing? How many years has passed?
Gosh, so I was in my, he passed when I was 16. And at this point, I was in my mid 30s.
Okay.
So it was a
Almost
significant,
20 years.
yeah, it was a significant amount of time. And I'm still trying to go back and see where he was at in all those years because there was some very hard years as a single parent. My family left me when I got pregnant and I was on my own. And so my whole life I've been on my own with no family. And it was tremendously hard. So I know he was there helping me. It almost feels I accredited everything to God helping me, but I really do feel John was in that as well. And the people that came into my life, even if it was just for a moment, I feel like John placed them there and put them in my path to help me, to guide me, and so many other things.
This whole unfolding that happened, that you started feeling that you don't have to follow the church, so you stopped. And after that, this unfold. Do you feel there is any connection between these two things? Because till the time you were not following your heart, you were giving into something else. Probably till that time, he couldn't connect with you, even though he was around. And the moment you stopped that, you started sensing him. Do you feel that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because religion, not just Christianity, but any
Exactly. Any
religion
religion.
is putting us in limited beliefs and it's putting us in a box. And as souls, we are not limited and God is not
Absolutely.
limited. But even the way that I believed who God was, every belief that I've had about God has been shattered because this is my soul we're talking about. This is not a belief that somebody's teaching me a book. This is my soul, and I have to trust my soul. And the creator of my soul is way bigger than anything that any religion could ever teach me. So, absolutely, I absolutely feel like being a religious person really limited me. It held me back, it put me in a box. I'm grateful in some ways because I think that it really helped set a like awareness of God
Yeah.
to some degree. And it helped me and put like really great people in my path. And it even helped me become more compassionate, more empathetic. I was a single mom struggling, but I was still volunteering and helping people. So it did help me in ways, but it absolutely limited me. And I think releasing it really helped John and the awareness of John to come back to me again.
So when was the recognition that okay, you were repelling that, oh, go away from my house and things like that. So when this realization came to you that it is him.
So at that time, like I said, I was looking at creating a spiritual business.
Yeah.
And so I was doing all this research, and that was around the same time I had that reading, and I knew he was around me. but I always just associated him with the teenage boyfriend that I had for one summer that passed very tragically. I never saw it as, oh, this is a person that I had a long time with or a huge love story with. It was just like, this is my teenage boyfriend that passed so soon. And yeah, we cared about each other and we loved each other, but I didn't really understand the gravity of our relationship. So as I pursued all the spiritual awareness and education and more like esoteric type of beliefs without religion, things started happening. So I was on the internet and doing all this research. Again, I was maybe like 34 or 35 at the time, I think, somewhere around there. And I remember I joined a Facebook group that was for people to go where there's psychic mediums to get readings because I wanted to see if there was anything there for me, if I was going to get more insight. But rather than being a person that was getting messages from psychic mediums, I became the person that was giving the messages. And how that happened was I was scrolling in the group and what people were posting photos of their relatives and their loved ones that had passed away that were in spirit. And so I'm looking at these photos, just scrolling, and I felt something very familiar to me that I hadn't felt since I was a child. And it was like the people in the photos were jumping out and talking to me. And I know it sounds very crazy, but as a child, when I was about 6, 7 years old, my great aunt that raised me along with my grandmother, she had these photo albums of very old people that I never met that had already died. Some of them were old family members, some of them were old friends of hers. And so as a child, I would love to sit there and look at the photos and study the photos, almost like I was having conversations or learning who the people were by looking at their photos. But it's something I did as a child, and I didn't know that it was unusual or anything like that. And I just left it there in my childhood, and I didn't take it as I grew. But that same thing came back to me in that group when I was looking at these photos. And so what I did was I started commenting on the people's photos and saying, oh, yeah, your grandmother, this happened and that happened. And people were shocked. And I remember one person, it was a man, he was a young Indian man, actually, who lived in the United States, who was in the United States military. And it was when we have that big Afghanistani war. I can't remember the year, but he died in that war. And so she wanted to hear from him. So she posted a photo of him, and immediately I connected with him. And he started saying how he missed drinking and all these very specific things. And I commented and I said this to her and I tagged her in it. And she goes, I can't believe what you're telling me. I feel like throwing up. How do you know these things? I never told anybody these things. I know you're talking to him. I know he's talking through you. And she was crying and she was typing all this stuff out. And I kept doing that in this group and everybody was resonating. I was like, whoa, what is happening? And so that was the first indication that I had mediumship abilities. But all years leading up to this, I was always a person that knew things. I was always the person that people would come to for advice. I was always very empathetic and very sensitive to others, but I didn't equate that to psychic abilities. I didn't even equate it to intuition, which, psychic and intuition is the same word, but I had this inner knowing. So that was always going on in the background, but it was that moment in that group that I understood, okay, I have this ability to communicate with those that have died. And so from there, that was the answer that I was looking for when I was like, I want to start a spiritual business. I want my work to be more meaningful and impactful here. And so because of that, that's when I started the psychic medium business. And that took me on a journey of, I would just say, love, a witness to love, a facilitator for love, because I put myself, and maybe it was John putting me through a training, because I was doing free readings before I started getting into the business and taking money for it. I was like, no, I need to know what I'm doing, and I need to know what I'm doing in its entirety. I need to experience all of it. And I really felt Spirit was leading me through this rigorous training where I was doing readings for people all over the world on the internet and all these different online spaces. At the time, social audio was a big thing. So I was on social audio, I was on Facebook, I was just everywhere giving people free readings readings, I would do these group readings for 5 hours at a time, nonstop talking. I don't even know how I did it, but I just felt spirit was helping me. And I would get these really bad headaches. At some point, these really bad headaches started. And part of me feels it is like the sensitivity that I have, and they showed up at the same time like the psychic mediumship showed up. And so there may be a connection to that in an ascension or a spiritual growth process where people are getting headaches. I do have to rewind a little bit to say, I remember as a child, I knew that I was here to help. There was something in me as a child that always wanted to help. And I don't think that's normal. When I had all these problems as a teenager, I went back to live with my great aunt for a moment in time, and I was looking for opportunities to volunteer. It was always like, no matter how bad and shitty my life was, I was always trying to go outside of myself and help others. So it was very apparent to me that that wasn't normal. Something was always telling me, you're here to help. That is part of the reason you're here. So now today I could be like, oh, it wasn't just me trying to avoid my own problems. It wasn't anything like that. It was God placed me here in this world and in this life to help. And so it makes a lot more sense now.
When you went to that psychic mediumship to hear from your grandmother, that time all these images from pictures were not jumping in front of you. But then later, as you grew spiritually, that ability unlocked inside you. So obviously
Yes.
it was there, but initially it was not a time for it to unlock, but later it unlocked. So
Right.
how has been your understanding about it? Is it your twin flame who unlocked it, or that awakening process made it unlock for you? What is it?
At the time, because I didn't know he was my twin flame, I just assumed that it was like spiritual growth. But 100%, I can look back and say it was him. There's something I believe about the twin flame experience when a twin flame dies, that if you don't step into your abilities that they're trying to basically show you that you have, then at some point in time, when you can become receptive enough to your own soul and your own calling, even just your own heart, then they're going to come. And that's like, even now, I teach every twin flame that I come across that has a twin in spirit. I tell them your abilities, if you're wanting to access them, they're there. And of course,
Absolutely.
every soul has the ability, psychic abilities, medium. You don't have to be a twin flame, but there is something major when a twin flame dies. It's almost like their purpose to become your guide, to help you step into your abilities, and not only just leave you with those things, but help you and work with you using like together. You have a joint mission together, even though their physical body has died. And sometimes it might feel like it's like more of it on you because you're the one living in this hard world and life, and they're like just assisting. But yeah, in the moment when all that was happening and I didn't know he was my twin, I just thought it was spiritual. It was all him.
So, how did you come across this term twin flame, and when did you realize that this is a twin flame connection?
Oh, I'm grateful for the question because, like I said, it's been a long road and a lot of time has passed. And I keep going back to think as I'm writing this book that we're doing, I'm going back and trying to put everything together. So, in my late 20s, I think I might have been 29, I met this man, and I would say very unhealthy relationship with him from 29 to my mid 30s. And it was very on and off. It was a very superficial relationship, but something happened in the relationship where I was falling in love. I felt like I really loved him, but it wasn't a normal love. It was like a love that I never experienced. I had my fair share of romantic relationships and partners. So I couldn't ever make sense of why I felt so strongly for this guy when he was a jerk. Like he was a jerk and he was emotionally unavailable. He was emotionally abusive in some kind of ways, but I couldn't release the relationship no matter how many times I tried. It just, none of it made sense to me. So I was like Googling, what do you do when you're in a toxic relationship that you can't release? I was Googling all these kinds of things that I was experiencing with him because I had some kind of awareness to know this person is unhealthy for me, but for some reason I feel tied to them. That thing right there did not make any sense to me. And I was going to find an answer to release myself from this man. That's when I came across the twin flame concept. When I was doing all this Googling in my mid 30s, and I was like, is that what he is? Because this makes no sense. And I just held that concept in the back of my mind. And then I was like reading people that had these twin flame experiences. It was always toxic, it was always so horrible. And I'm just like, this, okay, I don't know if I believe in twin flames, but whatever this is unhealthy. And I don't want any part of it. And shortly after all this, like, there's another piece to this. In my mid 30s, somebody from my past returned. And I'll just to share really briefly. There was a man, he was an old army man, a Vietnam veteran that I met in the same town as a teenager where I met John, where John passed. And for a moment in time, he helped me. He got me off the streets. He put me with his aunt to help me. He probably saved my life because it was really scary at that time. Well, now I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've been here for 20 plus years. I went on Facebook to look for this man to see if he was still alive because as an adult, I wanted to thank him. And I didn't find him, but I found his son. And I met his son back then a few times, and I knew of his son, but I wasn't very close to him. We have a 4 or 5 year age difference. And at that time, that was a big deal. And I found that his son not only lived in Las Vegas, but lived down the street from me. We quite literally lived on the same street. And I thought this was odd. Like something in me was like, this is like a synchronicity. And so we met. And as soon as we met, that was it. Like we knew we were meant to be together. And so this was also happening. And at that moment in time, that guy that I thought was my twin flame, which now I understand is a false twin, that's what that toxic relationship was. And so now I was able to leave it behind because here is this man that now I'm in a relationship with that it feels very divinely orchestrated. We also had something major in common. He was in Christianity, he was serving in ministry in Christianity. He was teaching people about God and the Bible. And so we had this in common, but actually at the same time, I was leaving Christianity, but we still resonated in that way. So it just all came together. It's just crazy. And I'll just share this here before I forget. He knew John. I didn't
Okay.
know until recently that he was friends and his girlfriend at the time was best friends with John's sister that had taken me in. I didn't know that their paths had crossed. So he had shared with me very recently that when John was a kid, he actually played video games. He was older than John, but I don't know if he babysat him and played video games with him. And so I had no idea that their paths had crossed like that. So it's all these strange synchronicities. His birthday, my partner, the one that I'm talking about, is the same birthday as John's little sister. It's like all these
Yeah.
crazy synchronicities. So, yeah.
I have observed this even in many twin flame stories, whether their twin flame is in the physical or in the spirit, that when this journey is progressing, there will be some common soul factor that somebody from your soul tribe would just be there on the horizon. That person starts giving you some information about your twin flame, or some dots are starting to get connected. It's very surreal to see, but I see that in many, many people's stories. And I think yours is also one of that.
Yeah. I would definitely say that John's family and my partner and his family are part of my soul tribe. And I do
Absolutely.
believe we incarnated here together at the same time to help each other because it just feels like the way that my life has gone, I have been alone so much, not having any family. And it's like all these people, all these souls have instantly become my family just upon laying eyes on them. It was instant. And the way his mom was with me, she was very loving and it was very instant. Everything just was like automatic. It was effortless.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I also find it very amazing to see that this man who helped you on the street it was random, right? Like you didn't know who this man is. So
Yeah.
you just got help from this person, then you end up knowing his son, who happens to be your partner for whatever reason, and that person also happens to know John. I mean, that's bizarre.
Yes. And it's just so crazy. And my partner, something about this soul tribe I'm in is very unique because I'm not going to say a whole lot because I feel like it's a story, his story. But my partner back in Bakersfield, where I had met John and his father, he had a near death experience where he was shot 13 times close range and died twice from that and came back. And he just equated all of it to Jesus and Christianity. And that's how he became a Christian after he came back. And now that I'm a medium and I have this deep connection with understanding like our souls more and communicating more, now I'm able to go back and see where he went when he died, who brought him back to life. So I get it to inflame. You have a near death experience. Like, what else, what else is there?
Yeah. Wow.
It's a lot.
Fantastic. So we discussed with this scenario that you were considering this toxic relationship to be a twin flame connection, but it happened to be a false twin. So how did
Yeah.
you realize who was your real twin?
So I'm doing the psychic medium work, and I know that John is helping me. But again, I'm still just thinking that he's a teenage boyfriend in spirit. And along him helping me in the psychic medium work, I'm thinking my grandma's helping me, my great aunt, my great uncle, spirit guys that I don't know their name or who
Yeah.
maybe they're just ancestors. And I just think it's like a collective group of people in spirit that love me, that are helping me do the psychic medium work. So time goes by. Like I mentioned earlier, spirit took me through this fast paced process. I remember when I first laid eyes on the photos in that group. And so I need photos to connect with spirit. And I remember saying out loud, I don't want to have to use photos. I want to be able to connect with people in spirit without having any photos because not everybody has a photo of their loved one. And I swear, after I said that, maybe a week or so later, I didn't need the photos anymore. It just started happening without the photos. And then people that had loved ones that passed from suicide, I felt such a deep connection with these souls that had taken their own lives in a different way, where I wanted to understand them more and what happens when the soul decides to take their own life. And so I started getting all these readings coming to me where the person had committed suicide. And so it was this training that spirit was like, fast-paced training that spirit was taking me through. And then I'm sure all the readings that I was doing, and that was helping me so much because that became my life. And again, I just thought I had this collective team in spirit helping me do it all. And then at some point in time, people posting in that group. I was spending a lot of time in that group. I had been tested by the admins of the group to become an approved reader. So it just meant that I could say, I can do a reading for you, or you can pay me, or I can do it free, or whatever. They were vouching for me essentially. And so I remember people were putting missing person stuff because they assumed their loved one was dead, but the body was never found. And immediately I was pulled to that.
Yeah.
Missing person work. And it felt very important to me, even more important than just regular mediumship, though
Absolutely.
regular mediumship was still very important to me. So I started doing the missing person work and using my team in spirit, thinking that's who's helping me. And I don't even know how to find the words for this. I was just divinely led because I didn't know anything about missing person cases. And immediately I understood, okay, there's a lot of murder here. There's a lot of death here. This is what missing person cases usually are a lot of the time. And it's really heavy energy.
Yeah.
How am I going to do this? But it felt like I was given like a strength and a protection that wasn't my own. Because on my own, I would have never wanted to do that work. It's so sad and
Yeah.
it's so hard and it's scary because you're dealing with people that have murdered somebody that are still out there. I don't want to say fear, but it is if somebody murdered somebody and they're still out there on the loose, and I'm on the internet on video saying this person is the murderer, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these different fears and these different thoughts and anxieties, but I still kept feeling led to work on missing person cases. And so fast forward, I had been working on missing person cases, but it had been in the group and people messaging me privately. I never outwardly, publicly, outside of the group said, hey, I offer missing person
Yeah.
cases or anything like that. But from the time I started mediumship to the missing person, what I did was I started a podcast called Missing Person Search Podcast. And the whole point of the podcast is to get all the location insight. It's not to say who killed somebody. It's not to bring up all the backstory of what happened. It's simply to get all the location insight where the body is located at and share it publicly on the podcast. So those that are looking, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's the family of the missing people, hopefully they can come across that or somebody shares it with them, because it's not easy. Law enforcement
Yes.
doesn't really take psychic mediums seriously all the time. Even the families, they have these heavy religious beliefs where they don't believe in psychic mediumship. So you can't really just reach out to the family and law enforcement like you would want to and share the insight. So that podcast was created maybe 5 years into my mediumship. And in that time, when I started doing these missing person cases, 5, 6 years into mediumship, I started taking all these cases on back to back about 7 months ago. And the cases were really hard. This is where the twin flame, this is where he comes in strong. So I didn't know he was helping me do all these cases. And I was sitting here in my office every night crying because it was like I was taking all this negative energy on. And I was just begging for more help from the spirit world, whoever was helping me. And I remember sitting here in my office crying one night, searching on maps. I would spend every night searching maps for these bodies. And I felt like a level of empathy and love for these souls that I don't think I've ever felt for anyone that I didn't know personally. And this love, this feeling of being connected to these souls and loving them so much and wanting to help them. I always say they're my friends now. They're not just souls that I try to help, they're my friends in spirit. And so I was crying and I was saying, I said it out loud. It seems like whenever I say things out loud, magic happens with spirit, because at that moment when I said, I just want to exist where only love is. I just want to live in a place where there's only love. So the reason why I said that was not because I wanted to die and I didn't want to live in this world anymore. It was more like, I don't understand humanity. I don't understand how everybody harms everybody here. Everybody's so violent here and abusive here. And it didn't make sense to me anymore. It was almost like my soul was recognizing this is not who we're created to be or how we're meant to live. And so in that moment, I felt John, I knew it was John. See, I had been working with people in spirit for 6 years at this point. I had been getting help from John and other loved ones in spirit at this point, but everybody always felt like up there. They always felt up there. And sometimes I could feel them in my energy and I would get tingle sensations and stuff like that. And that would just tell me that they're in my auric field. You know, I would feel them close when I was doing a reading for them or something. But it was different this time because I had never felt John and been aware of his presence like I did at that moment. And John had a gentle energy as teenagers. That was the one thing that always stood out to me about him. He had such a gentle energy. And so when I was crying and I said, I just want to live where only love exists, and he was right here standing next to me, I knew it was him. There was some kind of awareness that I had. And after that, he was here for 2 days with me. The only reason I was able to not be freaked out in a big way was because I had already been working as a psychic medium and communicating with spirit and doing all these readings. If I hadn't done that, I don't think I would have been able to understand or handle things the way that I did. But I will tell you, the first night that he was here with me, because it wasn't like he left. Everybody would always leave. Anytime I would do a reading and I could feel the chills, they would leave within minutes. But this was the first time somebody stayed. And that night, I bumped up against my fear in a major way. And how do I know you're John? Prove to me. I need you to prove it to me. And I got really scared because that night I heard somebody say suicide. But it wasn't just that. There was things filtering into my consciousness that I didn't know where it was coming from. It was different than mediumship because I wasn't doing a reading for anybody, but the stuff was just coming in. And so it freaked me out hearing that. And I think it's John, but what's really going on? So I shouted at him the same way that I had shouted at him years before in my mid 30s when I woke up and him that same thing again, because it's like this fear of you can't see with your eyes who this is. And so that happened and I was very mean with him and oh my God. Oh, I'm so sorry. And he was very patient and gentle with me. And I calmed down. It was like the whole night I was afraid. And I think I might have even been shaking at one point. I was so afraid. But by the morning, he stayed and something had shifted. I can't even tell you how I got out of that fear. I got past that fear and I was able to really recognize him. And I was like, okay, if this is really happening, you got to show me some stuff. You got to help me to understand what's happening here. And so I was asking him, I'm going to hold my hand up. I want you to put your hand and push. I need to know that this is real. And he did. And he pushed. And it felt like the energy of a hand pushing back. I said, okay, I'm going to put my hand down here and I want you to put your hand on top and hold my hand from moving. And I felt the strength of a man holding, like a person holding my hand down. And so we spent the next day doing all of these things and just me trying to understand all these things you hear. Oh, there's ghosts and they're able to do the lights and they're able to move things. And I always heard that as a medium, but I never had my own real big experiences, especially being able to physically touch someone in spirit. There's stuff on the internet about it, but you just don't know until you experience it. I think it's very rare.
Yeah.
And so it was like all this kind of stuff. And then there was a moment where he was behind me. And the only way I could say that it felt like, because it was so beautiful and so crazy at the same time, the whole galaxy collapsing on my back, a million shooting stars hitting my back. And it felt like energies hitting my back, spilling off of him onto my back. I don't know if that was accidental. I don't know if it was intentional. I still don't know, but there's just imagine all the electricity raining on you, like rain, just all over my back. I didn't even know if I was going to survive in that moment when it was happening because it was nothing I've ever felt as a human. But at the same time, I wasn't scared and it felt very loving because it was coming from him. I want to say 2 days was how he stayed with me like that, testing all this stuff and showing me. And it was like whatever request that I had of him, he was showing me. But then I think it was the third day, I was laying in bed and I felt, it's so crazy because I don't know how to word this properly. So I can only say it the way that it felt. It felt like something like a soul entering my stomach. Like we have all these sensations as a human, but this was something that I can't even, I just knew a soul was entering my stomach. And then it was almost like he had an adjustment period because I think it was later in that day or the next day, I felt my lower back. So where my stomach would be, but the opposite on my back, like a body, it felt like a body moving. And the way that I can understand this is I've been pregnant twice. I've had 2 children. And I remember when my babies kicked in my stomach and they could even kick like in your rib cage and your back a little bit. That's what it felt like. It felt like a human person in me kicking from my back. And I felt he was adjusting. It was him trying to get comfortable. It sounds like a sci-fi movie when I hear myself saying it, but that's exactly what it felt like. And since then, he hasn't left and amazing things have happened. And that in itself was a recognition to me. And I knew something special was happening. I knew that it was him. At this point, I still didn't know this is my twin flame, because the only experience I had was with that negative false twin. And I still didn't like the whole twin. I was a skeptic of twin flames. I didn't believe it was real. And any association that I knew of was negative and toxic, and I didn't want any part of it. So when this was happening, I didn't think, oh, he's my twin flame. I just thought I was having this crazy soul experience. Part of me believed that it was happening because I really needed help. I was really at the end of myself. When all that stuff was happening with the missing person cases, I was almost about to leave it. I was like, okay, after I finish these cases, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I think I even said that out loud. I know I had that thought. And so I just thought maybe he's coming in to help me, and maybe it's like a temporary thing. I just didn't really know. So I started again back on the internet trying to understand, does anybody else have these experiences? Are there, the first thing I think I went to is like other mediums. And I couldn't find any medium talking about this. So I just started looking anything I could come across where people were talking about this kind of experience. And I kept coming across terms like soul walk in, and that's the thing that resonated with me the most because of the physical aspect of feeling his soul come into my stomach that way. And so that's where a pinpoint that I went to, and okay, is it this? But then there was like twin flame. There was things I was reading. I'm sorry, my dog, she's out of
That's
control.
fine. That's fine.
There was a website and a lady that had a similar experience. And there was, I would say there's three bits of people that I came across in my search for the truth. And you were one of them. You were one of the three that had shared their own personal experiences. And so I was like, this kind of sounds like mine. Yeah, some of the things are different, but these are the only three people, they're all women, that have had these similar experiences with somebody that they love that died. And now they're having all this stuff happening. And all of you three ladies, your experiences were very unique and very different from mine, but there was just some resonance that I had. And I was like, something is happening here. And so it really became a quest for truth and understanding that I've been on and I'm still on. I'm still Googling stuff and I'm still finding people and
Yeah.
questioning. And I feel like I'm getting more awareness every single day. And the more that I talk about it and share about it, the more awareness I'm getting. And the awareness doesn't always come like a big light bulb. It comes
Right.
like in my heart space. Like I just know. I shared something very recently. How do you know that it's your twin flame when it's somebody that died? I think a great way to understand this is if you send that person love in spirit, but when you send them love, it feels like you're loving yourself. It's very different when, say, your mother dies or your grandmother dies and you're sending them love. Okay, it feels like you're sending them love, but it doesn't feel like you're loving yourself. So you can see the difference there. There's a huge difference there. And so now I feel like, yeah, my soul doesn't remember a lot because we have this veil put on all of us, but my heart feels all of it. And in trusting what my heart's giving me, there's so much truth there and awareness and soul recognition. So I feel like anybody that's on this journey that has a twin flame in spirit, it's very different when I look at twin flames that have a twin that's living, because that's not been my experience. So I just don't know how much of my story could be in their story. But when I look at twins that have one that has died, I can understand this very much so. And it's all different circumstances. I didn't recognize he was my twin. Some people know, and then they're even married to the person. They've been together for many years, and then that person dies. But I think, like, when you have a twin flame that has died, the mission isn't over. I think a lot of people get hung up on the grief and they don't really do anything with it. They're just like, oh, they died and that's it. And I'm sad and I'm grieving and that part of my life is over. But I feel we signed up to do something. I believe in soul contracts before we incarnated. And I think that me and John signed up to do something very big. And it may not just be one thing. It may be a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it feels like it's very, very important. And I feel he's the one propelling me when I want to quit, when I want to give up. He's no, you're not going to quit. And I'm going to strengthen you and I'm going to give you my help. And we're doing this together. You're not doing it alone. I understand love in a way that I never understood. And I'm a mom. You think the greatest love you have is your kids. And I'm somebody who's believed in God my whole life. And you think that's the greatest love that you're ever going to experience. And it's just not so. The way that my heart loves John is we have spent eons together. It's not like we just spent a summer together this life.
Yeah.
It's like we've been together since our creation. And I feel being with John and loving John this way, it feels like God is in him. I can't touch God. And I've always wanted to be closer to God. I've always wanted to feel God's presence more in my life in such a major way, and almost like to the point where I could hear God speaking to me. And I've never had that. But with John, it's I could feel God in me and through John and through our love in a way that I've never experienced. And I would say that this is very three-part. God created me and John, the same soul. I can't tell you exactly if we were split in two or how exactly that came to be because this veil is on me and I just don't have the memory of it. But it feels like God created us as one soul. For whatever reason, we split in two. I am of the belief because God wanted to give us the gift of experiencing ourselves and God's love through experiencing ourselves. So we came back together. I don't know if we just came back together because he wanted to help me or because we've achieved some kind of union through our own spiritual struggles and experiences, him in the spirit world, me in this physical world. But it really does feel like we've returned to ourselves in returning to each other. And so now there's God, there's us, but now there's this third love that we're creating. And that love is how we're helping in this physical world. And I would say not just the physical world, because we do help a lot of people in the spirit world too. So it just feels like it's a three-part of love happening here. It's three things in one. And there's not even big enough words in our English vocabulary or any vocabulary to articulate what's happening here. It just feels so big.
In a twin flame vocabulary, in my videos, I always call it as third energy. So when the third energy gets created, you will start creating so much because it's a creative force. It's a universal force that pushes you to do that. And you described that as third love, which I like. That word is way much more nicer and more soulful than saying third energy.
And since John has come to me, it's been maybe 2 months or so. He has not left. I still feel him with me every day. The way I feel him, he makes me feel him physically. I could feel sensations on my face, little sparks, little touches. I feel little squeezes, like somebody squeezing my leg or my arm. I get chills, like waves of energy washing over me. I can request him to do something and he'll do exactly what I'm asking him. Right now, while we're speaking, I can feel him really doing stuff because this is art. This is our thing, not just my thing. It's everything is with him.
All that experience that you're telling me, like the physical sensations and all, okay, there would be some differences between our experiences, but bottom line is pretty much the same.
So, in the past 2 months, what's happened with our work? We've been doing the psychic medium work. We've been doing the podcast still with the missing person cases, but we've gone on to create some things really rapidly. And I don't work rapidly at all. I move at a slower pace. So I know it's him pushing me.
He is there with you, and now because of that, that speed has increased and you are strengthening. That is the exact experience I have got.
I remember I was taking a shower and what is going on here? And I'm trying to figure it out. And I just see his name, John, and his name is spelled John. And I was asking him and I was asking Spirit and I was asking God, what am I supposed to do with all of this? And I saw just open hearts now. And John is the acronym for that.
Yeah.
And that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's not just mediumship. It's not just writing a book about twin flame death and sharing our experience. It's so much more than that. We
Yeah.
have so much truth to bring to this world of illusions that if we could share our own experience and our own truth, it's going to help people recognize their own souls through their heart space. Because I think it's really
True.
hard to recognize our own souls, but we can
Absolutely.
recognize what our heart is feeling. And so justopenheartsnow.org is a website that I created. And through that website, everything that me and John are doing is there. So it's just really been a beautiful experience to do this. And the big picture of that was to create a mediumship circle that we do free every week, every Wednesday. We offer this freely to anybody in the world that can access Zoom that wants to show up. And me and John together, we teach mediumship. And it's not so much of teaching because every soul knows how to do this. We just forgot we know how to do this. So it's just helping people remember and creating a safe space, a loving space, a supportive space where they can practice with each other and understand what it's like to connect with those in spirit. And because the mediumship, it's bigger than the mediumship, it's an entry point to soul recognition, recognizing their own souls that we're all connected with each other. It's all about love. And through mediumship, they're able to do that. And so for me, it really feels like a mission to teach the world mediumship. It's like a love line that we all tap into to communicate with each other. And so from that, I believe people can have major spiritual awakenings. It's not just learning how to communicate with the dead. And we're writing this book, Twin Flame Death. It's just a memoir to highlight our own experiences. And I'm trying to write it in a way where I can bring clarity. Even if their twin flame death experience is very different from ours, they could see the markers, like such as the fake twin flame that they may be experiencing and the psychic medium abilities that they probably have coming in and maybe they're scared of or they don't really understand, because these are the big things that we will all experience with twin flame death. It's such a big thing to come to this place and be confused and not understand what's going on. And you're like searching all over the internet and you're reaching out to different people. Do you know what this is? And I want people to have more clarity because there's not a lot of information out there about twin flame
True.
death. There's
True.
not.
True.
Since John's been with me like this, I feel like I'm tapped into some kind of consciousness, and I've seen ancient Egypt, and I keep asking about our history, where we've been as souls, to show me past lives, to show us lives together. But it's really interesting. My father's native tongue is Urdu, and I don't speak Urdu. I'm not fluent in that language at all. But sometimes when I speak to John, even before he came to me, I occasionally hear a word in Urdu and it just doesn't make sense because there's nobody. I don't talk to any of my family. So it really makes me question. And I'm bringing this up with you because we have this culturally, some things in
Yeah.
common, maybe. Why am I hearing that? And it makes me wonder, maybe one of our lives or some of our soul experience has been in India together in a past life. But it's just really strange to me because there's no other language or anything else that comes up, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And then it makes me think, what's the sacredness of India to our souls and what hidden secrets are there? I always feel like I have a hidden power within me that I hid in my soul, and I just don't know what exactly that is.
Two things popped up for me. First is that whichever ancestry you are incarnating in, so it doesn't matter how many days you spent with your dad or how much you have actually gone to that original place where your dad is coming from. But there is a certain lineage or certain ancestry that is connected to you that comes from that place, even though you haven't interacted with
Right.
anybody. So, this whole thing, especially coming from John, could indicate that it is coming to you as a sign. He showing you some Urdu words points out to your ancestry who spoke Urdu or still that lineage is still speaking Urdu, and something that you need to look into because it's way of make you notice something or start pondering upon something. As twin flames, we are also very much responsible for clearing our ancestral wounds or the lineage, clearing the bloodline. So, as you are telling that you already had that toxic background coming from your father, maybe there is something that you need to clear in that specific lineage. And maybe because of that, these things are coming.
Yeah, definitely. The partition of India is always, I don't know how much of my ancestry was like involved in it because it really wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And so what happened was they had to leave India because they're Muslim and they went to Pakistan.
Okay.
Every time it comes up or I think about it, it's almost like this big, huge, devastating thing, even though I was not there and I don't feel super connected to that side of my family. There's definitely stuff there that probably needs to be cleared for
Yes.
sure.
Yes, and it's not a coincidence that you chose that ancestry as one lineage for this incarnation in this life. Definitely, there is some reason why you chose him as your father. So, yeah,
Yeah, I
definitely.
don't know why him or my mother, but yeah, I do believe that's true. I think a lot of it had to do with learning how to be on my own and really trust myself and trust God because I would have probably not been searching for God and holding on to God so tightly if I had super loving, supportive, present parents. It's their abandonment that really made me pursue God. And it's funny because
Absolutely.
John's ancestry is like Hispanic. He's American Hispanic, so very different from my cultural background.
I wanted to ask you about this missing person podcast that you started. How did you handle the negative energy factor? Because there are a lot of people who watch my video channel, and many of those are also confused about this factor. That what if I get a psychic attack? Even I have experienced psychic attacks because somewhere I understand that the more you start ascending and the more you are holding the high frequency energy in you, the other negative entities will start getting attracted to you because they want to feed on your energies. So
Yeah.
a lot of people, especially in twin flame community, I have seen that people do experience psychic attacks or some negative entity presence, especially when they are processing higher energies. So you must have experienced many things because you are doing the mediumship and also this
Yeah.
crazy dense energy with missing people and murders and things like that. So is your twin flame the only protection shield right now, or there has been some other stuff that you have been?
Well, I'll start with God. I start with God and I end with God. I think God has always been protecting me, and that's my biggest force of protection. John is definitely second in command in my team. And especially with him with me physically like this, the protection feels so strong. I also have ancestors and I feel tribes of people in spirit protecting me. I've seen them, whether they're ancestors or they're spirit guides or they're just people I've met along my journey. I feel an overwhelming sense of protection. But it doesn't mean that I'm exempt from attacks. I don't know that I would call them psychic attacks, but I would define them as like shitty people on the internet. I just came across somebody
True.
very recently, a few days ago, that joined our mediumship circle. And she pretended to be a very spiritual person. Maybe she is, but the way she came and everything was very negative. And yeah, with the missing person work, there's a lot of like negative responses and comments. And it's always me being a master of my environments, especially when I'm the one that's created the environment where I create this very strong barrier and I'm very no nonsense. I hate even calling myself a teacher for this very reason, because I always feel like a spiritual teacher exudes love and tolerance and acceptance. And I very much have a soul of a warrior where I do not put up with anything and I will tell somebody you're full of shit and get away from me. That's how I approach people like that. Or if I don't even want to deal with that kind of negativity, which that's my first go-to thing, is just block them, just remove them, don't respond. But sometimes a response is needed and I have to respond in a more aggressive and less loving way. I have no problem doing that. And I think for a long time, especially in Christianity, I was worried about how I'm perceived, such as, oh, I need to always be kind and I always need to be loving. And John's really making me understand that I need to stand in my own power, even if I make a mistake or I say the wrong thing or I'm not so loving or I'm not so nice. So what? I'm being true to myself. And that's very important. This whole union experience with John is not all like rainbows and butterflies. There's a lot of things that I'm having
So
to
true.
deal with myself. Like I have a lot of fear about him leaving. I keep thinking, what if I wake up one day and I don't feel him and I say, give me a kiss on the cheek and I don't feel anything physically? I know twin flames can never be separated. I know that, I'm aware of that now, but it's very different when you have this physical experience and then to have fear that it's going to be taken away. Or just like the day to day struggles where I really want to look in his eyes and I really want to wrap my arms around him and I really want to hear his voice. And I can't get everything he's saying, even though we have this special connection. I always feel like it's less mediumship and it's more telepathy. That's how we're communicating with our twins. And I can't hear everything. So there's definitely a lot of learning that I still have to go through and a lot of removing limited beliefs and fears and still learning about myself and developing myself and healing myself. I think a lot of people think twin flame union is something about this romantic, just such a romantic experience. They romanticize it. And it's not, it's hard. It's a new spiritual level and a new spiritual awakening that's happening within yourself. And that's never easy. That's always a hard thing to do. So I don't want to ever make people believe it's like this. Yeah, sure, there's a lot of love, but it's work. It's work on self.
Exactly. Yeah. As you said, that you have this fear of he leaving you someday. Everybody's journey's divine design is completely different. So for you, as you were not very much aware of the whole twin flame dynamic or that whole balancing within you earlier, so it all happened after he is into the spirit. So this whole experience is also teaching you to overcome that fear of losing him, because I think that is one of the very, very, very prime lessons in the twin flame journey, that you would overcome one day that you are not having that fear of losing him. That reminds me that I was very much in harmony with my twin flame in the physical when he was here. And one day I said out loud with some contemplation that I was having in my head, I was talking to my guides that I have lost all the fear of losing him. Finally, I am over it. I don't feel that fear of losing him. And when I said that, less than 24 hours he had passed. So
Wow.
I was very angry because I thought that, oh, I said that and that is why this happened. I shouldn't have said that I have lost the fear of losing him. But then eventually, when I processed my grief, I understood that, okay, that's not what it is. I very much personally connect with that statement because this has happened. So as you
Yeah.
said that, I feel that probably you will have to work on that. I mean, that is part of your journey now, that you will have to overcome that fear.
Yeah, it's every day, every day. There's every day, multiple times a day. Every time it comes up, I have to approach it again with him and look at it. And it's almost like holding the fear in my hand and being like, okay, we're never going to be separated. And this is all temporary. This has also changed the way that I look at death. I don't know what I thought about death before. I thought there was a heaven and that's where we go. But boy, I have a whole different understanding now about what
Yeah.
happens when we die and where we go. And I welcome it so much, so much. It's crazy. And it's almost like I'm creating this life with him before we even get there, where I'm already working on creating a life with him for our souls. And that fear, I think it comes maybe from lifetimes of separation, of being pulled apart through death and life and everything that happens and reincarnation and all the cycles that we go through. Because I don't know if you resonate with this, that our twin flames, that we've probably had so many lifetimes where we've been separated because of death and different circumstances.
I resonate
Yeah.
with that. I remember few of my lives where the same history has been repeating, that he went on a war and I lost him. In one of my life, all my life waiting for him, but he never came. I have had such past lives, and when I started remembering those, I was very much in the trauma because I thought, oh, this is like such an injustice I have been going through in every life. And
Mm.
when this again happened in this life, I was again traumatized, severely traumatized by that idea that, oh, it seems to be a pattern that I am experiencing that same thing in every life. But now I have overcome that. There is some inner knowing that, okay, this is the last lifetime that I'm having this experience. And this experience in this life has been completely for a different reason. So I accept that now.
I often ask and wonder if twin flame union is almost like a cycle completion. I would love to believe that it means that we don't need to reincarnate anymore. I would love to believe that. At least this version of me would like to believe that, because this world is just not meant for somebody like me, I think. Just leave it as that and go about our way is what I'm hoping for. But I don't know. What do you think about it being a completion?
I think there are two sides of the same coin. And I think different twin flames will be in a different type of a scenario. For everyone, you would not be able to generalize the same conclusion. There are some twin flames who are star seeds who are not on the Earth School syllabus. They have just come here to volunteer with the Ascension program. So they don't need to go through the repeated cycles of life and death to clear their karma, because they don't have that sort of a karma, which the Earth School souls, the kind of baggage they are having, mostly the star seed twin flames, they may be having, but not that much. So their ultimate aim is not to get out of the reincarnation cycle on planet Earth. They are just here to volunteer. Once their volunteership is over, they would return to their planets. So in that case, it's a completely different scenario.
Right.
But those who are here and they are going through those incarnation cycles, for them, it is a great opportunity, because as we believe that twin flame journey is a fast track to ascension. So anybody gets into that and successfully navigates through that journey will be able to release their karmic entanglements, their karma, and it could be their last life. They can make it happen in this life itself, that they are so aware about whatever is happening with them that they are able to make this as a last life.
There's a lot of finality to what I'm feeling, like how I say, yeah, my soul may not remember, or my consciousness is like, there's a disconnect here, but my heart is guiding me. And I really feel the reason also that I'm teaching, doing the mediumship circle for free. People are even asking me, why are you doing this for free? How do you have the time? I don't know how long in my life I'll be able to do it, because it does take time. And now I'm also starting another part of this where I'm teaching those that want to learn how to work on missing person cases using psychic mediumship. So it's another thing. And the reason why I feel like is because I have to leave this with everybody. I have to give them this gift to help them exist here in a better way, in a more aware way, in a more loving way. And it's, I guess, the teacher in me is, I'm going to leave at some point. I'm not going to be here, and I have to give this to you. It's like passing the baton. That knowing and that feeling that I have makes me feel like there's something far greater for me and John on the other side. And I always have this feeling, and I've said it a lot of times to people, do not feel bad when I die, because I'm needed. I feel that I have a job on the other side. I never stop working, but it just feels like there's a job for me. I'm aware that there's something important for me to do on the other side. So when I leave, that means I have to go do that job. But yeah, it's just like these weird kind of little recognitions that people may have, but you can't really make sense of it all, and you're just piecing it together. I have to know my own truth. I can't hear somebody else's and think that's true for me. I need to know, I need to experience it. So yeah.
Yeah. Deviating a little bit from this subject, I also want to ask you about your physical life, because your twin flame is in the spirit. How about your relationships, your partners? What is your view on living life with somebody who is not your twin flame?
Well, this is always a hard thing to talk about when you have a partner. And this happens for a lot of people that have a twin in spirit where they have a partner. So because the little bit I shared with you about how my partner knew John and how he had his own near death experience, me and my partner are vastly different people. You know, I started growing beyond Christianity and he stayed with Christianity. I'm more empathetic and more connected to my heart space, and he's more in the physical world and the masculine energy. Sometimes I feel I'm his teacher. I'm meant to teach him and guide him and support him. And he's meant to support me, because before him, I didn't have any support from anybody in this physical world. My whole life, I didn't have anybody. And then he came in and he's all I have. So I feel he was strategically placed in my life through our soul contract or whatever to support me. And I feel with the missing person cases, I was so desperate to help these people in spirit that I even asked my partner, and keep in mind, he's very Christian and he doesn't believe. When I learned that I had these abilities, he struggled a lot because of his Christian beliefs. And so over time, he's gotten better about it. And he's, I believe you and I accept you and I love you. And he even helped me in some of the missing person cases. And I knew that he was connecting with spirit by what he was giving me over and over again. So he even has learned that he's tapped in, even though his Christian beliefs tell him, no, you're not supposed to do this. He's learning and he's coming to this awareness within himself. And I think that this is all part of our path, that he's meant to support me and I'm meant to help him go beyond Christianity and his limiting beliefs about life and world and God. And it just feels very divine that this is my partner. He doesn't know everything that's going on with John. I honestly don't think that he would understand it if I tried to explain it to him. I just don't think, I think he could understand some of it, but I don't think he could understand all of it. I keep hearing that he's not meant to. This journey is really for me and John to go on and for us to be able to share. And the people that get it are meant to get it. And the people that don't get it, they're not meant to.
Yeah.
And it's just that simple. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, very much. And I completely resonate with you because in my case, also my husband has been a very, very amazing support to me on my journey. And as you said, he's completely into his masculine energy, doesn't understand much about the heart-centered stuff. I mean, he is spiritual in his own ways, but he's not into the same awareness as I am. And I completely accept that and being grateful for him being my partner or a soulmate. And it works well because we are respecting each other, we are
Right.
respecting each other's work, and because of that I think it becomes possible for me to carry on my work. And he does help me when I was working on my book and I was expressing my love for my twin flame in the book to publish that book to the world. He was the one who was doing the proofreading for it and everything. He's understanding me as a human being rather than looking at me as his wife.
Any kind of spiritual journey is about like a self discovery, right? And I felt because my life was just about being a single mom and not really having any support for anybody, I was always so focused on just making money to pay the bills and survive, basically a survival mode.
Yeah.
So it didn't enable me time to really explore and discover myself. And so I think that was a big part of it too, why it took so long to come to this awareness and come back around to John, because I was living like that. And with my partner now coming into my life since my mid 30s, he's created space around me because he's removed some of the barriers of time and money and these things to enable me to discover myself and to learn and make sense of things. And if I was still that single parent that was just focused on making money to earn a living, I wouldn't even be able to offer a free mediumship circle the way
That's
I
true.
am. So he's been such a gift in that way for me, for John, and for others in the world, and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
So I just really feel our partners are very divinely placed to support us.
Absolutely. 100%.
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
And what about your kids? How old are they?
My son is 23, my daughter 24. My son
You
is a
don't look
very
like a mom of a 23-year-old
Oh, thank
person.
you. Thank you. I feel like it. I feel like it. My son, this whole journey with mediumship, he would tell me for years that I'm crazy. You know how young people talk, oh, you're just crazy, mom, whatever. And he had not wanted any part in mediumship at all. And for me, as his mother, I know that if I could leave this mediumship with him when I die, it's not going to take the grief away, but he's going to understand how to communicate with me in a way that's going to help him. And so he asked me what I wanted for Mother's Day. Mother's Day just passed. And I said, the only thing I want is for you to do mediumship with me. I want you to understand how to use it. So when I die, you know how to communicate and understand. And he stood here in this office for 2 minutes. And I said, do it right now. And he didn't fight. He didn't argue. He willingly did it. And he connected so easy with John. He never knew John, anything about John. And he connected so easy. And I said, right there, that's how you do it. So my goal is to help him practice and hone it a bit more. And I would love to leave everything me and John have created with my son to take over. But, it may not be part of his journey. I'm just grateful if he can learn mediumship. So I do hope that my son is able to really embody these gifts and use them for a greater good.
So, are they aware of the twin flame journey that you're going through?
No, no. I thought about like when the book is done, if I should give it to my son, if he would want to read it. Because the whole thing with twin flame death, and even for me as a psychic medium, I would hear different things and read different things online about twin flame stuff and different spiritual awakenings. But I think unless you experience it yourself, and you go through it, it's just knowledge, and it's just, oh, okay, that's interesting. I don't know if that's real. That person
Yeah,
says they experienced that, but until you live it yourself, you just don't know.
so true.
So it's just basically sharing our whole experience. Even now, like I said, I'm still learning and growing through this. And so, what I'm experiencing right now in this very moment is also going to be in the book. What my goal with the book is, yes, it's to share our experience, but really, like I said earlier, highlight the things that might be general for other twin flames that have a twin that has died, so they can see their own experience in it and they can have a better understanding, and they're not just out here in the wilderness. The book is available for pre-order on Amazon. Right now there's only the Kindle version, but I'm going to add a hardcover and a soft cover, and I've set it to publish July 29th, which is actually the anniversary of John's death. He died July 29th, 1997. So I wanted to reconfigure that date for us to be a day of celebration rather than a day of loss and grief that I equated with that date. So I think we're going to achieve that with this book. And it's really interesting to write it with him because I'm channeling him. So I'm trying to see how much of him is writing the words and how much is me. It really is that. And I've never done that even as a medium. I've never channeled a whole book with somebody. So it's a very different, unique experience. And it's 28 years of history. Actually, it's probably a lot more when we look at our soul's growth and where we've come from. But it's not an easy book to write, but it's really very much needed. And I just hope that it's going to stay out there even long after I'm gone, because like I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot about twin flame death out there. And the more that we can share our own unique experiences with twin flame death, it helps people that come to an awareness get an even greater awareness, and twin flames can pick up their mission and not just leave it behind in a thing of grief and loss, and understand that we are here to complete what we set out to do and help this world heal and usher in more love, because that's what it's all about.
I have met so many people who have experienced the deaths of their twin flame and they go through this whole process. So I'm sure your book is going to help them. If at all you want to give any message to the twin flame collective right now, what would that be?
I think to simplify all of this is love God first, not in a religious way, just for the sake of loving God, knowing that God is your creator, and put all your trust in God. And from that, you will find your truth. Whether it's your twin flame that you may get to meet in this lifetime, whether it's healing of your soul, it's all trusting God and allowing God to bring that love and that healing to yourself. And then you have so much love and healing, it spills out into the world. And in all of that, you start recognizing in every soul that we're all connected by this strand of love. I call it a love line. And we tap into that love line and don't see God as separate and don't see everybody as separate. I know it's not always easy because people can be very challenging, but we really are connected. And the more that you can love yourself and you can love others and you can love God, the answers are going to come, the healing's going to come, the awareness is going to come. don't be disillusioned by this world, because everything in this world is false and temporary. It's not real. It's not real at all. And it can make you take you off your soul's course and your soul's purpose. If you can't connect with your soul or remember why you're here, you can easily connect with your heart, and everything true is going to flow from your heart space. That's the greatest stuff that I could share right there.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We could have another session. You are always welcome to share your new
Yeah,
experiences.
I think I would like to come back, because this is only 2 months in with John. What's it going
Yeah.
to be like in a year from now? Yeah, I absolutely would love to come back and reconnect with you. I would love to hear more about your journey too. Any content that we can make about twin flame death and anybody can bring and make is so much needed and valued and appreciated.
Yeah, I'm so thankful. I'm not finding words, but it's coming from one awakened twin flame to the other as a soul sister that I really value and appreciate what you do. And please feel free to reach out whenever you want to. If you want to spread the word and if you want to utilize my channel for putting things out to the more bigger audience or a different audience than what you have, or anything, any sort of stuff that you feel like having, please feel free to connect. We all are like sisterhood or brotherhood, whatever you want to call.
Definitely. We'll be in touch for sure. For sure.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. Take care.